Welcome back. In this step, we would want to add update functionality on to-dos. So we are now able to add to-dos, delete to-dos, but we don't have the functionality to update to-dos yet. One decision we have already made for you is we would want to make use of the same JSP. I've seen a lot of applications where you have add todo.jsp and update todo.jsp. The logic which you do in add and update is almost the same. I mean, in the screen, you almost show the same attributes. Then I really don't understand the reason why you should have two JSPs for doing the same thing. So what we'll do in this particular step is use the same JSP as earlier. So we would use todo.jsp. Spring is such a beautiful framework, Spring MVC especially, because with the concept of command object, you can use the same form. As long as you set the command object in, you can use the same form for anything. So let's use that feature and let's use the same JSP to do an update on the to-dos as well. Let's get started right away. One of the first things that I would need to do is update the to-do service. Why do we need to update the to-do service? Think about it. So until now, we had methods to add to-do, delete to-do, and retrieve all the to-dos. But I don't have a function yet to retrieve a to-do based on an ID, because when I want to update a to-do, I would select a to-do on the screen, so I'll have the ID. I would want to use that ID and get the details of the to-do. That one. And the second one is I would also want to have a method in here to be able to update a to-do. So take a particular to-do and update the values in it. So I'll quickly create those two methods. The snippets are already available on this step. Because this is Java logic, I would not really want to focus on this a lot in this Spring MVC course. So what I'll do is I'll copy these two snippets from here. We'll discuss what's in there quickly. So what I'm doing is retrieve to do. So retrieve to do, I'm passing in an ID, and what it does, it loops the to-dos, and if the ID matches, it returns that to-do back. Otherwise, it returns back null. So retrieve to do, basically give an ID, it will give the to-do back. Give the ID 1, then it would return this particular to-do back. Give the ID 3, this to-do will be returned back. Simple. Now, I would also want to do an update to do. So update to do. The way the update works is, let's say I'm sending in a new to do, and the new to do has, instead of learn MVC, it has learn MVC 2 or learn MVC with 4. And what we are doing is we are removing the old object. So we remove the old object completely and add the new one in. So we remove this particular one and we add the new one with the description MVC2. So that kinds of simulates the update. It's not really an update as such. What we do is we are deleting and inserting a new row. So I mean, as far as this is concerned, we are not really talking to a database, so it's fine. We'll probably at a later point, we'll try and see if there's a better algorithm that we can implement for this. So for now, we have added in two methods, retrieve to do, update to do. Now our focus is to add those two things to the to do controller. I would want to be able to add things in here, but before I would want to add things in the to do controller, I would want to go to the list to do.jsp. So let's put it in here. We already have a delete button, so I'll put the update right next to it. Right next to the delete button, I would want update to do method. So let's go ahead and say, earlier we were using delete to do and passing the ID. So now I'll say update to do and pass the ID in. And update, that's it, save. Let's go ahead and run the application and see how it looks. Aha, we have an update. But yeah, update is not really a warning. So I'll make it a success or info or something of that kind. So it's not really deleting something, so I'll call this success. Let's also reduce this a little bit. Yeah, okay, now that's the complete page that you can see right now. So now we want to do an update. I'll click update. Obviously, because we have not implemented the controller yet. So let's go ahead and implement the controller. To do controller, what I want to do is update. So this is very similar to the delete because I'm passing in the request parameter ID. So I'll copy this. Update is much more important than delete, so I'll put it one level above update. So update to do, I would want to rename this. This should be update to do, request method get, that's good. We get the ID, But what I want to do is, I don't want to, I want to retrieve the to do with ID. So I get the ID from the screen, I use the ID, get the to do. So now I put it into a to do variable, but I would want to also put this in the, where do I want to put it? The update to do. What we want to do is we would want it to redirect, not to the redirect here, but we want to actually redirect to the to do page, right? So I'll put return to do, because when user clicks update to do, we want to show the to do.jsp. So I need to return to do, and to do object is available in here. I would want to make this to do object available for the screen. How do I do that? We need to put it in the model, right? So model dot add attribute to do comma to do. That's simple, isn't it? So now we have the to do object, and let's see if it's shown on the screen. There you go. So we have the first to do shown on the screen. Let's see if the second one comes up. Learn struts. That's perfect too. Third one. Aha. That's perfect too. So we are able to now click the update. But when you click the update, or I mean, this is not really add, it should have been update. So what I'll do is I'll change this. I can add in a if condition, pass in a parameter update, and based on it, if do it. But I'll keep things simple. Call this submit, so that whether it's update or add, this would not be a problem. Oops, wrong place, I guess. Not the right place. I should have updated the todo.jsp. So let's go ahead and update the todo.jsp. The value should be submit. Whether it's update or to do, it's okay. So now I can say submit. Aha, post is not submitted because we have not implemented a post method in here. So let's now go ahead and implement a post method for the update. I want to implement the post method for update, and this should be post. After the update, I would want to redirect the user to where? I would want to redirect him to the list to do's page. So I'll use this. So that should be the page, but we would want to update the to do. So we would want to update the to do in here. So before that, let's not really worry about it for now. So let's just have this method in here. We'll implement it a little later. So for now, let's not really do the update. We just redirect the user to list to do's and just check if it's working fine. So I'm doing a resend, and the user is going back. So update, submit, update, MVC2, submit. The update is not going in. That's clear. I mean, we have not made the update yet, but at least the screen is coming up. So all that which remains is we would want to be able to do the update in here. So we have to do the update to do in here. We have to call the service method to do the update in here. So how do we do that? In that sense, update to do is very similar to add to do. So now I would need to add in the same things that I have in add to do, because when the request is submitted, I want to first validate. So first I would do is add modal. I'll add this to in. So add valid and to do result. So now the same code again, we have to check if there are errors, if there are no errors. So if there are errors, I would want to return the user back to the to do page. So that's number one, validations. That's good. The other thing we want to do is do a to do service, or the service which we already have, dot update to do, and pass in the to do. Let's see what would happen. Refresh, update, learn Spring MVC2. Aha, null pointer exception in retrieve to do's. The reason why we are getting a null pointer exception is because in the retrieve to do's method, if we go and look at it, line 41, we are checking for to do.getUser and comparing against the user. And if you look at our particular to do in the update, we don't have the username anywhere on the JSP. So in to do.jsp, the only values which are present about the to do are description. So other than description, there are no other values present. So what would happen is all the other values would get lost. So what I would do is I will quickly add a hidden variable for ID as well. So form hidden path is equal to ID. So this would create a hidden variable for ID. Hidden variables are things which you don't want to show on the screen, but I would want those values to be returned. So what would happen is when I put a hidden variable in here, that user value would be saved. And the other thing I can do is hidden path is equal to user. Now, both these values would be stored as hidden values and they would come back to the screen. So now when you do a view source on this, let's say I look at the data which is coming on for this, you'd see that there is a hidden value. You'd see that the ID 1 is stored as a hidden value in here. And you'd also see that the user is also stored in a hidden value in 28 minutes. And when I say submit, if you get this error again, what you can do is you can quickly restart the server so that the data gets reset. What was happening was, in the first update that we did, one of the to-dos was updated with username null. And thereafter, we cannot change that value in there. So that's the reason why what we did is we restarted the server so that we can reset all the data that is there. Ideally, if we had the data in the database, you just had to change the database. But this is kind of a consequence of having a static list in memory. Now, let's go ahead, list to-dos, update. You'd see that in the page, we have hidden values which are put in response, two hidden values, ID and user, and these get binded to the to-do bean. And now when you see submit, you'd see that the thing is getting updated. You'd see that we are losing the target date because we don't have target date on the screen. So in the hidden parameters, we have not put the target date. So the value of target date is getting lost. But if I updated this to Spring MVC2, this works. We'll focus on target date a little later. But what we have done now is we added a couple of hidden variables so that we can retain those values in here. But ideally, hidden variables are not a good thing to use because hidden variables are part of the post and anybody can in between can intercept and change it. So you should put very few things in the hidden parameters. What we did in putting an ID in there, I think that's okay. But things like user, which we put in there, that might kind of be a security thing because I can change the username to some other username in my hidden values, and then the value, the to-do would be stored against that particular user. So instead of taking the user from the form, I would rather take it from the session. So what I would do is I'll update the to-do controller to use the to-do use the username not from the request but from the modal, because in the modal in session we have already set it in. So I'll add a modal map as an attribute so that I can get access to modal. And now I'll say modal.get. We have already put modal in the session using add session attribute a long way back. So we would use that and set the user from there. So now I would say, I'll refresh the page again. So update, and now you'd see that the change is stored. The date is lost. That's something which we'll handle in the next step. But for now, we are able to add the update functionality in. The update functionality has been a little tricky thing, I would say, especially because we wanted to make use of the same JSP. We didn't want to really create a new JSP. So we used the same JSP. We added a few hidden things, and also we added a couple of service methods so that we would be able to create the update functionality in here. Until next step, bye-bye.